Good afternoon, everyone. A warm welcome to all of you joining this session on digital humanism, keeping people at the heart of digital transformation. It's a great honor and pleasure for me to chair this panel with distinguished panelists. My name is Peter Kirschläger. I'm professor of ethics at the University of Lucerne, and one of my research focuses is on ethics of digital transformation and artificial intelligence. That's probably the reason why I'm allowed to chair this panel. And I'm looking forward to our discussion together with Eva R., who is a venture capital investor at 3VC, partnering up with visionary European founders across the German-speaking region and CEE. And her focus includes enterprise businesses, infrastructure, and health tech, where she led 3VC investments into Localize, AV Medical, and Neton. Warm welcome to you, Eva. Then it's my great pleasure to welcome Clemens Himpele, who has been studying economics at the University of Cologne, where he graduated in 2005, and he's now the CIO of the city of Vienna since October 2020. Warm welcome to you, Clemens. Then a warm welcome goes also to, next to him, to Moritz Piffel. Moritz Piffel. The reason why I couldn't pronounce his name correctly was because he was so kind to step in at last minute, because unfortunately Lena Hödel is ill, and that's the reason why she can't be with us this afternoon. Our wishes for a speedy recovery go to Lena. Moritz Piffel is the co-founder of Vollpension. Vollpension is a startup trying to create a meeting and learning of older and young people in different ways of collaboration by baking together. Maybe you can then explain better exactly how this business works. And then, last but not least, a warm welcome to Leonhard Dobusch, who is professor of business administration with a focus on organization at the University of Innsbruck. His main research interests include organizational openness and private regulation via standards, specifically in the field of intellectual property. And he's also the co-founder and academic director of the Vienna-based Momentum Institute. So also a warm welcome to you. In order to start, Clemens, may I invite you to give us a short insight in what digital humanism is really about?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. Short is the problem here, yeah? But I think I don't have not to emphasize that digital technologies bring a lot of opportunities, and at least with the pandemic we learned how to use them really useful. But digitalization has also become a threat in itself, like how it looks, and that's the reason why there is a concept like digital humanism. Of course, we know the negative effects on people, society, and our environment. And I think 7 years back, in 2015, there was the Vienna Manifesto on Digital Humanism written at the Technical University here in Vienna. And this Vienna Manifesto on Digital Humanism begins with a quote from Tim Berners-Lee. I think he's well known in this round. With the quote, "The system is failing." And the question is, why is the system failing? And what can we do to change it? And I think the most important thing is to understand that technology is being made by human beings, and that means it's never neutral. Technological progress is a good thing. We had it in the past, and it's the basic of our wealth. But it's not neutral. It does something with us. It has it puts in this case tremendous pressure on economic and social conditions. We have an easy access to political debates, but we have at the same time the problem with filter bubbles and echo chambers, and it does a lot with the democracy. We have it's quite easy to intrude into our private lives. Yeah? And the perception what is right and what is wrong is massively changed, or is massively influenced by digital technologies, and of course we have also manipulative effects with that. We have market dominance from platforms. We have market dominance of huge operators and corporations, and the question is now what to do to put the humans back in the center of this development with technology means. And of course, you can try to regulate it. We have a lot of things running right now. For example, within the European Union, we have the debate on the Digital Markets Act and the Digital Services Act, which tries to standardize and to bring some rules into the digital markets. We have new standards created by IEEE, which was presented in Vienna about ethics and artificial intelligence. Of course, secondly, I think it's very important. We don't have to implement digital technologies at any price. Just one thing: the right to privacy and control over personal data must also be in the center of the debate. And last but not least, we must ensure that we can close the digital divide, which already is there out there. And this, in the end, digital humanism. I mean, it's if you have a better phrase, just tell us to us. But in the end, it means that the humanity has to be at the center of the design of the digital futures. That I think is what it means. So of course, we still have a lot of questions to debate. The debate is at the beginning, not at the end. And in this conclusion, I would therefore really like to expressly thank the Vienna Business Agency and the Vienna Science and Technology Fund, because both of them are promoting the research and also the entrepreneurs in the field of digital humanism a lot in Vienna. And I think Vienna should be or must be one of the places in the world where we can create a digital humanism, which means use innovation, use the technology, but always keep in mind that in the end it has to serve the people and not the other way around.
Well, thank you so much for this very helpful and insightful explanation of what digital humanism is about. Now, let me ask you, Eva, from your perspective as an investor, when you listened to Clemens explaining this idea of digital humanism, what does this with you, like from an investor's perspective? Do you see any responsibility for an investor to foster digital humanism? And maybe also where do you also see limits in the possibilities an investor has in that regard?
Of course, I think we as investors have the responsibility to think and also act on that, because with us giving capital to teams, we are actually facilitating the rise of certain businesses. And there is, at the moment, I would say since 1 to 3 years, also a raise of awareness around the investors that this is relevant. And there are funds that really define themselves as impact funds. And one of their core KPIs is something impact related. Today, mostly actually CO2 related. And then there are funds like us, and we like to call ourselves, we are impact aware funds. So when we meet teams, when we look at businesses, there are certain questions that we have to answer ourselves. So if they are successful, at whose expense is it coming? If that product is winning a great market adoption, like who is benefiting from that? Who is losing with that? What are the drivers? What are the values of the team? Why are they doing this? So there are really a list of questions that we consciously go through. You can call it also negative screening in that sense, because if we then get concerned about certain aspects, and that could be a reason also why we are not investing. And there have been cases, for example, just 2 weeks ago, they're a great team, and what they do is, and you can make a lot of money with what they're doing, and it's basically a platform that enables financial service companies to go for the next level of financial engineering. Is that really creating a value to the world? Not really. So that was the reason why we passed. And so I think also investors are becoming more educated in Europe. In the US, it's still not really a topic, honestly. But it's also hard to say what is the best practice. So there are a lot of discussion around frameworks, and the issue might be that every investor will come up with a separate framework, and then the teams, they see that as a burden because they just have to comply with some reporting. So this is a tough question. What is the best way, how to actually manage that? But of course, we have the responsibility, and I totally can relate to the questions that or the information that you just shared, right? Like, who is responsible for that? I think those are the people that have the power, and if they are not taking that seriously, then probably somebody needs to interrogate. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Eva, for that. Let me pass now to you, Moritz. If you listen now to Eva, now from a startup perspective, where do you see your possibilities, as a startup founder, to basically walk the talk and bring digital humanism to life?
So we were forced to digitalize. We opened our second cafe house, I think 4 months before the first lockdown. And we upgraded to a number of 45 grannies that are employed in our cafe house. And these people are mainly working at Vollpension to get some additional income because they live on very small pension. And then from one day to the other, there was no more guests, no more revenue, no more money coming in. And the problematic situation was that the elderlies could not apply for Kurzarbeitszeit, so there was no possibility that the government is stepping in to pay the salaries. And it's only micro jobs, so the grannies are making 450 euros a month, but multiplied by 45 next to the running costs and the rates for loans, etc. So the whole organization was in danger. It used to be a totally offline business, but then offline was gone. And so we said, well, let's give it a try. We do have the grannies. They are sitting at home. They are bored. They do have the baking knowledge. And back then, it was still the time where we thought if you shake each other's hand, somebody is going to die potentially in the first days or weeks of the pandemic. And so we put some sterilized plastic bags with iPads and iPhones on the doors of 5 brave prototyping online baking teachers. And we said, well, if the yoga teacher can do it and do the asanas via Zoom and teach yoga from home, Granny can do it as well. And so we did some Zoom calls to do some basic tutorials, and then we started doing prototyping of online baking classes. And this was in March, end of March 2020. And then we said, well, probably there is coming another winter, another lockdown after the summer. So we started in April 2020 to build an online baking platform with the goal to launch it on the 1st of October 2020. The project was called Vollpension Bakademie, so Baking Academy, and we launched there 2 formats. One, live baking classes via Zoom, the thing we prototyped, I just told you about, and O Masterclass, so high production value, top-notch TV studio produced on-demand baking classes. And on 1st of October 2020 we launched O Masterclass Perlen der Wiener Mehlspeiskunst, vegan baking with Granny and Christmas cookies. And so we had, of course, no money for doing all that, so we had to talk 60 plus friends and family and specialists into helping us building a TV studio, building a set, doing camera, building a streaming platform. And luckily all these people went into the risk, in the entrepreneurial risk. So everybody worked on this project for several months without knowing if they would ever get a penny. Parallelly, we applied for some grants. And luckily, on the Christmas Day 2020, we got all the investment back and all the people were paid. So we had, in the meantime, several, I think, 1,000 participants in baking classes. A TV format evolved out of the streaming platform, cooking books, recipe cards, and so on. And now we went offline again, so to say, 2 weeks ago. So there's not just, so Bakademie is not just online anymore, but we are offering offline baking as well. I used my time, I guess, or
Well, not for that, but I think I think you were able to give a clear idea what the contribution of a startup can be to digital, to kind of the realization of digital humanism. That's the reason I would like to ask and bring in also Leonard's point of view on. We just listened to a very concrete example of a contribution of a startup to the realization of digital humanism. Where do you see the responsibilities of the different societal actors in implementing these ideas of digital humanism?
Yeah, I think to have the idea and the concept of digital humanism as also a framework to think about what each of these members of certain groups can do and can contribute is definitely valuable. And when I listened to my three co-speakers here, Clemens, he mentioned the need to regulate. Eva, you mentioned the investor responsibility, and you mentioned the entrepreneurial risk that actually entrepreneurs were willing to take. Also, but with a risk also to accomplish a more humane niche, I would say, in the economy. But I would want to add, and while I think this is all very necessary and helpful, I think a holistic understanding of digital humanism cannot just rely on the market. So I think digital humanism has to go beyond the market, and this is also true for innovation. This is also true for I would say non-market entrepreneurship. Yeah. So to give you an example, so what I'm thinking about, you mentioned in your opening statement, digital humanism is also concerned with large for-profit platforms that are also, to some degree, instead of bringing people together, they're actually increasing the divisions in our society. And I think we all know examples of that. And actually, we try to regulate them now for a decade, and we are well behind. And actually, I'm not very optimistic that we will manage to, in a way, catch them. They will be ahead. And so I think also in the digital realm, we need what we also had to build in the offline realm in the past, which is public alternatives, public options, not to replace the market, but to complement it. Yeah? Maybe even support it. Markets cannot create the conditions for their own functioning themselves. We know that. Yeah? That's true for offline markets, and that's true for digital markets. And so what I want us to recognize, that all the responsibility in the world, all the entrepreneurial risk in the world, all the regulation won't be enough for digital humanism if we are not also ready to invest in digital services of general interest, public spaces that are non-commercialized, that are non-profit. And to give you one very specific example, still there's only one large website amongst the top 50 websites in the world that is not for profit. It's just one. And the funny thing is, when I talked about divisions, it's actually one of the only website where you can go nowadays to get informed about also the most controversial, most important topics, and can be quite sure to receive some robust and quite, balanced knowledge. And this is Wikipedia.
Which one is it?
It's Wikipedia. Yeah. And Wikipedia is not without flaws. I'm doing research on Wikipedia. We know it's mostly white northern dudes writing it. Yeah, and they are, and there are all those problems with gender bias. And I think these are really true problems. But the funny thing is, when you think about the history of Wikipedia in the early days, everyone was asking, how can you trust anything that's written there? Everyone can write anything in Wikipedia. Nowadays, it's the completely opposite story. People asking, how can I get anything into Wikipedia? Everything is deleted. But because they were open for this manipulation, in the beginning they had to deal with it. But what they are based on is a transparent, non-for-profit, commons-based, and collaborative approach. So when you see here where courage meets collaboration, I think one of the most courageous acts of the founders of Wikipedia, which were actually coming from the startup scene. I don't know whether you know that, but do you know who ran the servers of the first 3 years of Wikipedia? It was a Silicon Valley startup company called Bomis.com. Actually, anyone know what the company did? They were offering search services for erotic content, main target group male. Yeah? And they had still space on their servers to run some wiki experiment. But what the courageous moment was, 3 years later, yeah, to hand over the IP, the brand Wikipedia, which was already established, to a non-profit foundation, to abstain from allowing ads on the site, and to go for a donation-based model, which is hugely successful. Wikipedia actually doesn't know what to do with all that money. They are sitting on $100 million on funds and an additional $100 million endowment. So it can even work, yeah, such a non-profit approach. And I would love to see more of these non-VC ways of innovating that go beyond the market.
But can I come back to you? If you see these possibilities of non-for-profit innovation, why would you call them for regulation? Couldn't we just say, well, you know, non-for-profit organizations will fix what the market is not able to fix?
If you see the juggernauts that the dominant global platforms are, yeah, then I think I like the question, because you say having non-for-profit alternatives do even stand a chance to survive against or side by side to these juggernauts. But I think, you know, we need all the regulation we can get, that, but that is smart enough to really target the dominant platforms. Because we've seen in the European level, for example, when we talk about privacy regulation, you mentioned it, actually, you know, all the small startups, they have to now deal with this, with the GDPR, and actually the only companies that don't have a single problem with GDPR, because it's entirely based on any individuals, you know, agreeing to whatever Facebook, Instagram, TikTok presents you with, and they have the market power to force you to accept it. All the smaller companies, yeah, they now need to hire privacy lawyers, yeah, but they are not the problem. And I think that's what DSA, so Digital Service Act, Digital Market Act, what they did better. They really learned from this, I would say, failure of the European Copyright Directive and the European Privacy Regulation.
Yeah. Thank you. Eva, when you listen to Leonard and hear the word regulation, what is your first reaction on that?
I think that it's okay. I think sometimes it's also really helpful. I was just reading that now in the healthcare space, they also want to regulate more the way how the healthcare data can be used in Europe to facilitate research and so on. And I think standardization across Europe is a very good thing, so that we can actually compete, you know, against the US players. And I mean, GDPR, okay, yeah. I think it also created the market opportunities to an extent, like for those startups that build, you know, companies there, and for a lot of consultants that can, you know, now sell their hours. So I think it really depends. Like sometimes it's very meaningful, needed, and probably there are also spaces where it's more maybe hindering us. But what I wanted to ask you, Leonard, most people just don't care about those things. They don't care that TikTok and Instagram have their data. Like, don't you think? I think it has to start also with the education. But I'm not sure, honestly, like how to do that so that actually people care about that. Because we have discussed a lot internally: is privacy tech? Is this a thing or not? And we have a tough discussion internally. There are team members that think that in a B2C space, so that consumers will care about that, and they will care about search engines that don't track your data and so on. Like, I honestly think that the most people won't care. So this is where the regulation needs to push the enterprises to take care of your data. So,
very, very brief. I think people don't care, and I don't think that it should be on their shoulders. They have enough to carry. I think privacy regulation should just forbid certain acts that are problematic, and the fiction that people can consent to what is happening with the data when they have no idea what's actually happening with the data, that's just wrong, and that's I would say the basic failure of the GDPR.
I see. Could you relate a little bit on the role of the state here in regarding to the digital humanism?
Yeah, I think, I mean, Leonard mentioned a lot. I would like to add two things. The first thing is, I think, Leonard, we are running exactly in the other direction than you mentioned right now. I mean, we have the huge debate about the hyperscalers, and the not so funny thing is, there is, let's say, a public-driven project like Gaia X, and the first thing they said is we will not be a hyperscaler. They are a data platform, which is fine. Yeah, they will. I think Vienna is participating in that because that's what you mentioned. Yeah, it's an idea to say, okay, let's bring together public authorities, also private companies, but set standards which are in line with what we want to do within the European Union. So I'm not so optimistic like you that we just can create public answers because the standardization and also the scaling is so high. It'll. I mean, we have to try it. But Gaia X, I don't know how optimistic I really should be. Yeah. The second topic is I'm totally with you, and that's Eva, what you mentioned as well. Digital Services Act, Digital Market Act is much better than the GDPR, but also the GDPR was the beginning of the standardization of a European market in these terms. The problem is we never enforced it. I mean, we have nice rules, but as long as you are not able to enforce it, and as a city we are not, yeah, we're definitely not. We are able to enforce platform politics which are located in Vienna. We had the debate before the pandemic about tourism. Yeah? We'll see if it comes back or not. But even this is hard enough if you have to enforce a rule in this case in Ireland or in the Netherlands. So I think the rules are the one thing. But if we are not willing as a European Union to enforce it, then it's totally pointless. It's totally pointless because what happens then is that the private companies just have clicking boxes, as you mentioned. Yeah, click yes, I'm happy with all, but give me the service. And the only institutions which are not able to provide these services is the public, because we are bound by the law. Yeah? I cannot say, oh, that's funny, we have a law, but I would like to give you a better service, so I just do a box ticket, IFA. Yeah? And if not, we will have no passport. I'm so sorry. Yeah? That's something we cannot do as a public authority, and that's the problem we have at the moment. Yeah? Everybody says, oh, the city of Vienna must be much smarter with the digital technologies. Yes, there is a lot to do, even within the rules. Yeah, that's not as. Yeah, we have enough to do. But we have also the problem that the private companies just say, okay, ticking box, as you mentioned, nobody knows what happened. And I'm really happy that there are institutions like in Vienna from Max Schrems who tries to enforce it. That's also sometimes a problem because I mean they often concentrate on the big players, which are really welcome, yeah, because it doesn't help if there's a small, let's say you have a problem with the GDPR because I don't know you missed the box or whatever. So what? I mean, then you have to talk and say, please change it, yeah. So I'm very happy that none of your business goes with the big players. But in the end, we often have then a problem with the results of that because it comes back to us, as I mentioned. If the data protection committee says it's like this, then to us it is like this, yeah? Public institution. But
is somebody measuring the impact of the GDPR regulation at the EU level? So did it make sense, or did we achieve what we wanted to achieve?
You know, the funny thing is, if you talk to lawyers, I'm not a lawyer, they often say there is much more possible than you think. But of course, if you have it written in the law and it's not, we don't have a lot of speeches in the high courts right now. Often the companies, even more the public authority, is on the side to say, okay, be careful with it. Yeah. The question is, I think we need to reframe the GDPR. I think there's no doubt about it. But what I want to say is it was the first step really to try to have a standardization within the European Union, and that's what I really, really welcome. Yeah? And of course, what the Digital Markets Act and Digital Services Act now do is that they say, okay, there's a threshold. Yeah? If you're very small, you have other rules than if you're a big company. And this is really the difference concerning the GDPR.
Can I just add one thing? I think what you just said, you know, that the public authorities enforcing standardization, this is great, but I have a hard time to believe that the public space can build products that then can actually get the mass market adoption, because there are so many bad examples how, you know, public has a hard time to build products that people love to use. And
well, yes, we have bad and good examples, I would say. That's very important. But the point is not. I mean, how does we work as a city of Vienna? Of course, we work together with the market. That's
I'm not talking about city of Vienna.
No, yeah, sure. And that's. I know what you have in mind. But it was in the media so much. So, of course, we work together with standard products and with the private markets. But we have a special problem as public authority. you know, if you have some products which a company try to scale and to sell a product, we have often so small processes. For example, we can often not use products from Germany because we have other laws in Austria, yeah, or products from France or whatever. So often it's back to us to really create them by ourselves because it's not out of the shelf. Yeah, and that's not because we don't want to or whatever. Yeah, sometimes we don't want to because of the problem with what is with the data and so on. But often we don't have the product, so we really have to create them by ourselves. Often we have them, of course, yeah? But that depends on what we are doing with digitalization.
Yeah, sure, Mark, go ahead.
So I think it's a regulatory challenge, and that's the only way to tackle it, because you mentioned 1 out of 50 websites, Wikipedia, as a positive example. So that's obviously not enough. Services that are offered by the state, the city, the union, there is this one negative example we've got all in mind, but I think it's more... It's
a good one is a testing system, for example, in Vienna. Yeah? That is digitalized to a high degree, so just saying.
Yeah. So there might be some local good examples, but I think overall the state, the union is not capable of building services for search engines, for social networks, for social media, etc. And I'm having a hard time with the term digital humanism. It's hard to grasp it, and I ask myself why. I think because it's very utopia, and what we are in right now, it feels more dystopic, and the digitalization is very much growth-centered, money-centered, stock market-centered, market share-centered. It's not really, and when people, so creating a startup is a very popular thought or way for students, for young people. So the idea is how to get rich very fast. That's often the first impulse, is my feeling, for people are chasing unicorns, and not so often it's really about how to fix a problem. So I think we need regulation to stop dystopic development. That's my very strong feeling.
May I jump in here for 2 reasons? So first of all, I'm a business scholar, so I'm doing research also on entrepreneurial failure, for example. And you mentioned just now, and you also were highly skeptical, can the public sphere even provide goods that are adopted by the mass market? And we all know these examples that failed. You know, when I do research on startups, you know, what they are telling me all the time is, you know, we need this failure culture. You know, actually, it's about what you learned. You know, it's the lessons learned. You have the post-mortem statement where you are proud about your failure. You know, if you're a politician, you're proud of your failure. You have been a politician long enough. Yeah. So I think we also need to extend this new failure culture also to the public sphere and the public sector, and we need to allow them to make failures to develop. You know, if we don't allow experiments in the public sphere, you know, how can they improve? Yeah, so I think we have to, at least in that case, I would say, let's apply the same measures, you know, because if we would think about all those failed startups, we would say the market doesn't work at all. You know, 9 out of 10 startups fail miserably. Should we abandon the market? No. But we also should not abandon the public sector just because they can't build an airport in Berlin. And that's the first point I want to make. And then the second, and I love it, and that's what I love about this panel so far, is that we have been very specific, also in our examples. I'm, for example, a member at the ZDF Television Council, Fernsehrat for the Internet. That's really what the law says. There's one representative for the Internet, nominated by 4 associations from Berlin. I've been there for 6 years. And I want to give you a counterexample to both of you, actually. Because what the public service media, for example, in Germany was allowed to do, because it was forbidden before, only 6 years ago, was to fund Funk. I don't know if anyone of here knows you. You're all actually too old, no target group here, sorry. But it's you know, it's the hardest target group there is for public service media. They try to reach 15 to 25 or 29-year-olds only via digital platforms with public service media content. Actually, since that started in 2016. They had launched 130 different formats. They have thrown out 30 or 40 again. That's what we need. They were allowed to fail. And they were hugely successful. And over 80% of the target group in Germany knows at least Funk or one of its formats. Yeah? So in the highest competitive environment you can think of, which is YouTube and Instagram and TikTok. And they succeed because they were allowed to succeed and because they were allowed to start anew, yeah, with Funk. And when you say, no, I don't think the state can run social media, I completely agree. I would be scared shitless if, the conservative Austrian government was running the social media department. That's why I'm in favor, yeah, of non-market but also non-state entities. And that's what Wikipedia is, for example. That's also what public service media is. If there is an infrastructure, an environment that protects it from both the state influence and a sole market orientation. And to give you the final example, what I'm, for example, arguing a lot for is, in the market for streaming services in Germany, market leader is Netflix, about 30% usage per month. In second place, it's already ZDF and ARD and their Mediathek. And then only in fourth place is Amazon. So, actually they are providing a service, but currently, what they are not allowed, or what they, actually, I think they could do it, but I want to push them to try it, because currently, if you want to then comment or like or discuss what you've just seen in the ZDF streaming service, you have to search for the content on YouTube, and there you can post your comments, which is completely crazy. Yeah? And so actually what they are currently already halfway there to be social. So millions of people log into the public service media services because, for example, you needed to verify your age because they are also the only website on, and here I'm with you, they are the only website that abide by age restrictions with their content. You turn around, yeah, go ahead, but if you want to watch Tatort before 8 o'clock, you have to register. That's what people do. So you have already user profiles, you have the content, you have the people there, so it's not that you have to get them there. They are there, they would want to discuss about it, and currently you're just not allowing it. Yeah, and so I think I'm not saying it's easy, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying let's try.
But I like what you're proposing, but do you see that the public sector, when they build products and so on, do they apply similar concepts to be efficient, like customer development, lean approach? Because I think often the negative kind of connotation comes with public sector being way less efficient, needing way more money to maybe then learn that this is not what the people want.
I did some research also on public sector administrations, and I would say to some degree, yes, change is slower, but that's also in the ZDF, change is slower, but to some degree, this is not just a bug. Yeah, it's also a feature. Yeah, it's something that brings stability. And when you look at, for example, such large-scale crises such as COVID, yeah, the public infrastructure, general services, they worked, and they still worked. Yeah, and so sometimes change is slower, and that's okay. We have the market who cannot get ahead itself. Yeah, but maybe it's good to have a public alternative. There I am again. Yeah, it shouldn't. If it's the same as the market, we wouldn't need it. It needs to be different, and if this means it's a little bit slower, but it's different, I think that's fine.
Well, at the beginning, Clemens, you were so kind to give us an introduction into digital humanism. Where do you see risks and opportunities in digital humanism?
Well, of course, the risk is what we debated about here. Could we miss opportunities? That's the question. Yeah, I would say in the end, no, because as all technological progress, if it doesn't make our life better, we don't need it. And I'm not sure if all technological progress we had in the past, let's say 10 years or 15 years, really were progress if you look back to them in, let's say, I don't know, 50 years or what's so on. So I'm not so pessimistic like Moritz, because if you look back in the history, we had often situations where a huge change was there due to technological progress. And every time in the beginning it was not regulated good. We had a lot of what you mentioned, shooting to the sky, making the money, whatever. But the question is, can we be quicker than the past times with less problems? That would be very nice. We face a lot of problems with digitalization, and we are not at the end of the debate. There's much more to come, and that's why it's so important to discuss about regulations, alternatives, and the role of the public sectors, because I'm still not sure what is the role of the public. Vienna has a lot of services which are not digitalized in the first hand, like public transportation system. Of course, it has digital technologies, but you have the parks, or you have the schools, or you have the kindergartens, and so on. And the question is, what is what public has to do in the sector of digitalization? Of course, it is connectivity. I think but that's basic. That's infrastructure. And the second is what Leonard made, the discussion Leonard made. What is really needed? I mean, if we come to the actual conflict in the war from Russia against Ukraine, there was Amazon Web Services, I think it was, or Azure Cloud from Microsoft. They said we stop services in Russia now. Yet now I can welcome it from political reasons, whatever, but that's not the topic here. But the question is, what does it mean when a public company in a foreign state can decide if public services still work or not? What does it mean? And the question is maybe Leonard right? He said, okay, you have to do it by yourself. Because in the end, it's maybe not as quick, it's not as good, it's not as comfortable, but it works in the end. And that's the question we have to debate. I mean, nobody was talking about a pandemic for 100 years. The pandemic came. Were everything right prepared? And no, it was not. But it was enough prepared that we could handle it. I think not so bad in the end. Thank you.
Please don't end in that discourse.
But what does it mean if for example, a huge company decides, I don't know, Vienna we don't like Vienna because they debate a lot of digital humanism. I mean, they will not do it. But will you really rely on that? I would say no. So the question is, what do we have to do by ourselves? And the second question is what entrepreneurs and the financing of this has to do. Because in the end, I'm sure that people will learn that the day is not a good day if you hang around, I don't know, 5 hours with Facebook, Twitter, what so on. They will learn it. There will be a next generation who say, I don't care. And then the question is, what is the alternative? Less Twitter or another platform? I have no idea. I don't know it.
I had the impression that you wanted to react.
No,
then Moritz.
Do you want to react on this? Because I have another question. I'm very curious about your answers.
Quick reaction. So you were saying we were prepared enough to handle it quite well. Right now, when talking about digitalization, I'm not sure if humanity is prepared well enough. So when very basic things like communication, you see families sitting in public transportation and restaurants, stopping communicating with each other, and everyone is looking in the smartphone. So and we all know the stories about the algorithms. I'm not sure if we are prepared enough to handle it.
I think I have a good follow-up question. So what do you three think about metaverse?
Okay. Let me intervene shortly. Just from a moderator's perspective, we have 5 minutes to go. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't respond to that question. I'm just saying if you might kind of combine it with your takeaway from this session. So we could kind of combine the response to that question with your summary of this session. Thank you.
So I've got a very quick reply. It's the subject of one of our newsletters, the recent ones, and it says Omiverse statt Metaverse.
Thank you. Leonard, you want to respond to that question?
I think Metaverse is at least better than most of the crypto things. Low bar.
Exactly. Clemens, you want to?
Well, I think the really important thing is to try to make it better. And I think I'm really grateful that the business agency tries to organize the business in this direction, and the WWTF tries to give researchers a possibility to research in this direction. And no, we are not prepared yet, but that's why we're talking about it and working on it.
You were happy with these responses?
I think we would need another discussion on that. Yeah, but if you asked what was the takeaway for me from this session, I liked what you proposed, that we should also let the public sector fail.
I feel a little misrepresented and misquoted here. but I think we understand what I meant.
What is your takeaway from the session, Clemens?
Well, that's what I said. I mean, we're debating it now since, I don't know, 5-6 years, and we are still. I mean, you said it's hard to grasp, and that's the problem. We still don't. We have an idea of human-centered technology, and we know that there is a lot of technology out there which is not human-centered, but the alternatives are still to come, and that's why I'm so grateful that we have these calls and try to make it better.
Thank you, Clemens. You want to add something, Moritz? What you take away from this session?
I think I will ask myself more if I stumble upon a new service where I usually click all the boxes just for being capable of using it. Maybe I will ask myself the question if it is human-centered or not before I start using it, which I actually didn't so far.
What about you, Lennon?
For me, this discussion actually said that I think we need to have more of these discussions, because I really had the impression that our different backgrounds actually together around this table, they enriched our understanding, each of ours.
Now it's getting too much harmony from an argumentative point of view, and we have still some minutes to go. So let me ask you a more difficult question. What are you going to do different on next Monday? You know, after the impact days, after the weekend. Well, Monday's actually holiday, so better on next Tuesday. What are you going to do different based on digital humanism next Tuesday?
I will take a closer look on all the boxes to check on our website, because I have no clue what people have to check there.
Thank you.
I can make it very quick. I will be on vacation on Tuesday.
I feel like it would be actually exciting to just spend more time reading about this, because, you know, this has been so far like, okay, on the go, you know, we kind of are thinking about that, but just maybe just really think more from different perspectives.
I will fly, did I say it out loud? I'm sorry. I will go to Berlin to attend Republica conference, and before there will be a debate on, actually it's called Plattformräte. I don't know, actually the idea to have some democratically representative, councils overseeing the large platforms as one way of enforcing regulation, and I will take also this concept of digital humanism to this debate. That's my plan.
Okay. Well, Clemens, you can imagine that I wasn't happy with your response. I mean, so what are you going to do different in your vacation based on digital humanism? No, I'm just joking. What are you going to do different, like in the first working day you're back after your vacation?
Well, yes. No, what we're really doing is the question of what kind of technology you use as a city. We debate it almost day by day at the moment, because it's really not easy. Outside the population say we want to have the best services, and I totally understand it. And on the other side, we have this data topic all the time, data protection and so on. And that is what we try to balance. And this balance, it's a day-by-day discussion, and it's not and this we have to make better altogether. Yeah, you need some data to have better services. That's no question. The question is what to do with them, how to and if you give the data to a public authority, you must be sure that they are safe. Yeah, there's nothing you can change about this debate. But that's what we're doing since a long time now, because it's not so easy to answer the question.
Thank you so much for this extra work, and thanks all to you. Thanks a lot for joining this panel and for your insightful comments, ideas, thoughts you shared with us. Please join me applauding our 4 panelists for this extraordinary panel. Thank you. And thank you. Well, I wish to thank all of you for joining the session, and have wonderful impact days. Thank you.